mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, well, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
You know, but once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage for 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo. Welcome to another episode of Chill Will Radio. First and foremost, I am sorry. My apologies for, I clicked the wrong button, the wrong intro. The wrong intro freaked me out. I was like, whoa. But anyway, we're here. You know, ain't nobody perfect. We all make mistakes, but we all got to rebound. So, what's the deal, man? How's everyone doing, man? Welcome to another episode of Chill Will Radio here at the Good News Radio Station, man. I am so glad to be here, so glad to be back, and I feel myself getting more comfortable with being here. I'm not as nervous or as not really shaky, but my palms aren't as sweaty as they once were. I remember when I first started the very first show, it was fucking ridiculous. Like, the whole day, I'm like, what can I do? And then I was running a little late that day, and I was like tripping. I was having probably like a little mild panic attack. And then, as the weeks and as the shows, went on, it was still the same thing. But today, for some odd reason, I was just cool, calm, like damn near like the whole day. And obviously, getting on the show, you already have those little butterflies in your stomach or whatever, but all of that is warranted and all of that is fine when it comes to doing something that, one, is new. I've spoken about this before on the show, when you're dealing with lack of confidence when it comes to certain things and when you're just trying situations, but it's okay. It's a part of the process, and I'm here for whatever, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the cute. But what's going on, everyone, man? As you're listening, first and foremost, please check in, tell me what it is, how you doing. Just let me know your presence. I always like to acknowledge those individuals who are listening. So if you're listening, just stop in the chat, say hi, what's up, what's poppin', how you doing? But once again, this is Chill Will Radio, man. Thank you for everyone that's tuning in. Thank you for everyone that will be tuning in later on, and thank you for everyone that haven't tuned in yet because they haven't caught on yet, but you will catch on eventually, man. This is Chill Will Radio, where we're speaking about mental health within the black community, all things mental health within the black community. We're going to have those tough conversations, those hard conversations, those funny conversations. We're going to make light of a few things. We're just going to make mental health in these types of conversations normal. We don't want to make them as bad and as what's the right word I want to use for this? We just want to make it normal. We want to make people feel comfortable when it comes to having these conversations, man. And this is what we're doing here at the Good News Radio Station here on Chill Will Radio. Welcome and thank you, everyone, for tuning in. As far as how I'm doing, a quick little check-in, man. I am good. I'm feeling really, really relaxed. Really, really relaxed, man. So early on in the week, it was rough, because I had to finish out on new things. I had to finish up a lot of stuff because I went on a little, I guess, I don't want to say miniature vacation or whatever, but I went away. I went away to Idlewild, California, like the movie. Yeah, Idlewild, California, and it wasn't a small town. It was an extra small town. Like the radius of the town was probably as big as, I don't know. It just was not big. I literally walked around that entire town within 30 minutes. But it was a really, really dope experience. It was something that I absolutely needed at that point. Because before that, I was working off of 2 to 3 hours of sleep per night. I'm working 8 to 14, 15-hour days. It'd be sometime I work at one job, and then directly after that, I'm going directly into the other job, and I have to do this. I'm editing this. I'm trying to formulate this, writing new things out, coming up with new ideas, creating certain stuff, and doing all that while trying to make calm and okay in front of patients. So, I felt like I needed a time to reset because I had stopped working out. Once I stopped working out, I started to see myself become a little bit more aggressive, and I had to get away. I had to get away. So that right there is something that I had to do for myself in order to reset my system. Why? Because we work hard. I work hard. A lot of us work hard in a lot of the things that we do. But the thing is, and shout out to Soko, she's a therapist. She had a King's Talk, right? A group of black men came together and she hosted it, and I was there. And one of the things that we spoke about there was this aspect of not feeling like you're doing enough. Not feeling like you're doing enough. And then for a lot of those individuals who are very, very hard workers, sometimes you feel as if you could do more. And, for me, that's something that I've been working with for a while. Trying to figure out what more can I do. I'm already feel like I'm stretched thin, but I feel like I could be stretched out more. I feel like I could be doing this. I feel like I could be doing that. And there's a lot of things that goes into it, right? Am I doing enough because I feel like I have to do certain things? And one of the things that I spoke about there was I'm thoroughly surprised that I've made it to the point to where I've made it at this age and a lot of the things that I've accomplished thus far. And as a black male, when you live in a black community, when you live in a hood, you get to a certain point to where you just appreciate the fact that you're alive. Because, 21, 25? You were supposed to be dead or in jail? I'm neither, right? I'm 27 years old. I'm not dead. I'm not in jail. And a lot of the things that I came across, I thought I was supposed to be dead, right? It was about 2-3 years ago. I was in a car crash to where the car almost blew up while I was inside. I was supposed to die then. I almost drowned a few times. I was supposed to die then. There's a lot of times in which I was supposed to die. And I feel as if I could be doing more because I don't know when I could pass, when I could die. And for me, that's exactly why I try to do everything right now. Because I have to do everything right now because I don't know when I'm going to go. And that right there, when I spoke about that yesterday, for me, that was kind of deep. For me, it was like, let me chill out, right? Let me be fortunate of some of the things that I have within this moment. And I guess that right there is a good little segue into the self-care piece. And the self-care piece is the exact thing that I did. The self-care piece is the exact thing that I did these past few days, which is get away, leave, go somewhere to just reset. And that was extremely important. Going somewhere to just reset was extremely important because I needed to, one, calm the fuck down. I needed to use that time to just sit down. Use that time to reflect. Use that time to calm down and just be okay. Because when you come from an environment, or when you come from a fucked up childhood, right? When you come from a bad place, you really don't take a second to step back and really see where you're at. See where you come from. Using that time to get away, to go somewhere to where it's just you and maybe your spouse, a significant other, whatever. Using that time to go somewhere and just reflect is going to allow you to just be okay and be fortunate with where you're at, what you've done, how far you've came, things like that, right? Because when we're in that grind, when we're in that mode, we are not stopping, period. Not for no one, not for anybody, especially if this is something that's extremely important to you. You're not stopping, right? And you forget to do certain things that are important. Like me, a lot of times I forget to eat because I'm working so hard. It's like I realize that I need to eat when I get a headache, right? When my head starts hurting, that's when I'm like, okay, let me grab something to eat, right? I always drink water. I'm never dehydrated, but let me grab a banana real quick or an apple or whatever the case may be, right? Let me just put some in my stomach real quick so this headache can go away, and then I'll be good. But within that moment, even though we're getting a lot of things done, it's very, 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 very unhealthy to not step back and just take a seat and just reflect and calm yourself down. And I'm big on health, right? I work out as much as I can. I'm a vegan. I don't eat animal products. This is very, very weird, but I don't eat white stuff. I don't eat white stuff. I'm not a racist, by the way. I don't eat white stuff. Like, if you can name something that is white, some type of white food that is healthy, I will eat it. Right? If you're listening, you can name some type of white food that is healthy, I will eat it. But as far as white stuff, there's no white stuff that's healthy. But anyway, I don't eat. I'm a vegan. I've been a vegan for probably like a few years now. I don't take really bad. I don't put bad stuff in my body. Right? I don't put bad stuff in my body. I'm very conscious about the things that I take in. I drink a specific type of water. I only drink distilled water. It's like I'm very conscious of everything that I do. No, Keith. No, Alfredo. What's going on, Terrence, man? I appreciate the fact, man. Cauliflower. No, I do not eat cauliflower. Cauliflower has no nutritional value, and it is a fake vegetable, man. It is a hybrid of a few things. So, no Alfredo, no cauliflower, no nothing. What was I saying? But I'm very conscious of everything that I put in my body. And I like to believe that I'm a very healthy person, but when you're not getting any sleep, when you're moving around all the time, when you're not really working out, when you're not doing the self-care things that you normally do, you're going to fall into some type of hole, some type of trap. So even though you live a healthy life, understand there are certain things, understand that your work ethic can be unhealthy. When you're living a very healthy life, such as eating, not putting bad things into your body, working out, things like that, understand that your work ethic can be unhealthy because of the lack of sleep that you may get, because of the stress, because of the anxiety, because of the pressure, because of all of these things that can come into play that can cause you to shut down, right? And if you don't make time for your body's going to make time for you. Facts. So get away, right? And it doesn't have to be a full-blown weekend. It doesn't have to be mushrooms aren't white. It doesn't have to be a full-blown weekend like I did. You don't have to go off to a cabin in the woods like I did. Go to the beach for a day. Disconnect. If you got a little room, do that. If you sit in your car, just disconnect and get away and just reset and just have that woosah moment and everything, because we all need it. We all need it. We all have to give ourselves the credit when it's due, and we have to just make things. We have to make things work for us, and we can't work for those things, right? So whenever we're in a situation and we notice things start to get a little bad and stuff like that, take a step back. Don't feel bad for taking a step back. Don't feel bad. Don't feel guilty for backing up. Don't do that. There's going to be people in your life that's going to cause you to feel bad because you want to take a break. There's nothing wrong with taking a break. Nothing wrong at all. That's fine. Do what you got to do. Take your break, because you got to understand, taking that break, that's for yourself, and you're going to need it. If you're not taking that break for yourself, your body's going to take that break for you, right? Your body needs the fuel. Your body needs the energy. Your body needs time to reflect. You need time to reflect. So, take that break when it's needed, however it's needed, however you can, whether it's going away for a weekend, whether it's, going on a little mini vacation with just you and your spouse or whatever, whether it's going to the beach, whether it's just, going to your room and the car, whatever. Do what you have to do. Disconnect, and just get away. Just get away, man. But first and foremost, Terrence, thank you for tuning in. Keith, thank you. Didier, thank you. Man, I would say, what's that, white rice? But nah. White rice, we already know. That's damn near plastic, man. We don't eat white rice over here. We don't eat white rice, Terrence. Only brown and wild rice, man. Quinoa is cool, but it's quinoa is just nasty. It's weird. But moving into the main topic of the show today. So, last week I spoke about boundaries. Right? Boundaries just on a general sense, right? I spoke about the types of boundaries, why they're important, why we need to have them, certain steps and things you can use in order to, maintain and enforce certain boundaries that you need for certain people. But for this show, I thought it was important to really speak about boundaries within relationships, right? Boundaries within relationships, specifically boundaries with a significant other, boundaries with a partner or a spouse, those types of boundaries. I've noticed that a lot of the conversations that I have with people, it's geared around their relationships, right? My boyfriend and my girlfriend, he does this, she does that. I broke up with him because of whoop, 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 but then I'm back with that person 2 days later and blah, 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 and I don't know when to give in, and all this stuff, right? And a lot of the things that we go through in these relationships, a lot of the problems, because of boundaries, right? We don't know how far to go, and then people overstep their boundaries and go too far with us, right? So boundaries in relationships are very, 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 very extremely important, right? The boundaries that you set on yourself and the boundaries that you set on other folks, right? So why are boundaries important? Obviously because of some of the things that I've just said, but also it lets the other person know how far they can go and how far they can't go, right? That's we need to understand within relationships, that boyfriend, that girlfriend, that partner, what can I do and what can't I do, right? Because if that person doesn't know what they can and can't do, they just going to be doing things all willy-nilly and whatever the case may be. And then you're going to get mad at the fact that they're doing XYZ when in reality you never told them that they shouldn't be doing XYZ. So should you be mad at the fact that they doing such and such? No, because you never vocalized it, right? You never communicated it, right? We have to communicate these things. So these boundaries are there to allow the other person and to allow us to know what we can do and what we can't do, right? Because there is something that we have to put forth there, right? It also allows and it also shows us, right, that we take that other person's feelings and we take that other person's feelings serious, right? When we have those boundaries and we ask, hey, do you mind if I do such and such? Do you mind if it's okay if I do whoop-de-whoop? Yeah, right? Because if we just go ahead and start to do things without asking or without being mindful of how the other person is feeling, we're stepping all over them. That person is going to start to feel violated. That person is going to start to feel down. That person is going to start to feel just like shit, right? And if we don't put forth those boundaries, and like I said it last week, there's a big difference between boundaries and walls. If we don't put forth those boundaries, somebody's just going to step all over us, right? Somebody's just going to step all over us and do whatever the hell they want to do to us, right? They're just going to do any and everything that they want to do to us, right? And we can't allow that, right? Because boundaries are there to help us stay safe. Boundaries are there to help us remain peaceful. And it's important that we have those boundaries. See, boundaries aren't anything negative. Boundaries are not negative. There may be this perception that boundaries are negative, but the boundaries that are negative, they either are boundaries that are, just too much, just too strict, too rigid. Those boundaries just may be unreasonable, right? And then when a boundary is unreasonable, that's not even a boundary anymore, right? That's really you trying to control that other individual. That's really you trying to be, this is a power struggle. I need to assert my manliness, and I need to assert that, I wear the draws in this relationship and all this other stuff. Nah, those aren't boundaries, right? That's an unhealthy relationship that can lead to something that you don't want to lead to, right? So some examples of healthy boundaries are boundaries to where, you are very mindful of the fact that you need to take care of yourself, right? Take care of yourself, so you can have good self-esteem, right? Because if we allow that other person, if we follow that other person's lead all the time, to when it comes, we do everything our partner does. If my partner says jump, I'm going to jump. If my partner says we're going here, we're going here. Even if I do not want to go there, I'm still going to go because my partner said that they want to go, so I'm going to follow my partner's lead. No, right? We need to be mindful of certain things that we like and understand that it's okay, to have those certain things. So taking care of yourself and being mindful of certain things, Another example is and I'm gonna speak about this, later on in the show. But having respect for others' sexual boundaries, right? Having respect for other sexual boundaries within relationships, right? That's another thing that I'm going to speak about. Some examples of unhealthy boundaries is when you put, like I was just speaking about earlier, when you put, someone else above yourself when it comes to certain regards, right? When you put someone else's feelings before yours, right? Because we got to keep ourselves sane. We got to keep ourselves straight. And if you're not doing that, good luck, buddy. It's going to be hard. It's going to be extremely hard, right? So maintaining those boundaries in relationships are extremely, extremely important, right? Boundaries are not something that's meant to control someone, right? Boundaries are not things that are meant to control other individuals. Boundaries are things that are allowing us to understand where we're at in the relationship. What can we do in the relationship? What can't we do in the relationship? Those are some of the things that boundaries are do. Right? Some of the things that boundaries aren't, once again, is another example is if I do this, if you don't do this, I won't do that, right? If you don't come see me, I won't buy you this or whatever, right? Another example would be, this is a funny one. A lot of guys do this primarily within the whole phase. And even in the whole phase calls for boundaries as well, right? A lot of dudes will tell you like, oh, I can go have sex with whoever and do whatever I want, but you can't do none of that. You can't do none of that at all. And that's an example of unhealthy boundaries within relationships, right? A lot of the times, especially within our whole phase, and to be quite honest, guys do this a lot. We put forth that boundary in the beginning of, I'm not ready for a relationship. I don't want to do this. We're not going to do this. We're going to strictly keep this, sexual, right? And if that individual agrees to that, great. But the problem is that boundary that we put in the beginning, we don't remain consistent with it, right? We say, we're going to do this, but on the other end, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And now you're going to start to feel confused. The woman is going to start to feel confused, right? Because you told me that we're just having sex, but you were talking to me at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You're taking me out on dates and all this other stuff, but it's only this. And I can't, you're holding me to the standards of a girlfriend as if I'm in a relationship with you because I can't do this and I can't do that, but you can do everything else, right? Those aren't boundaries. Those are situations in which the other person is trying to control you, right? And we have to be mindful and be able to point it out, right? We have to be able to acknowledge those boundaries. We have to be able to see, okay, you're unhealthy for me, right? You're not something that I need to really be around, so I'm going to back off, right? Another example of what boundaries aren't vague, right? You have to be very, very specific in what your boundaries are and how the crossing of those boundaries will affect you, right? For example, if you're in a relationship and your individual and your partner, drinks a lot. If you're in a relationship and your partner drinks a lot, and if they drink a lot, they start to get loud and very obnoxious and all these other things, you yourself, you have to put that boundary out there and say, hey, I'm not going to accept the fact that you're drinking because it makes me feel bad. It makes me feel, like you don't care about us. It makes me feel, insecure, whatever the case may be. Allow the person to know how their behavior is making you feel, right? Because a lot of times when we do negative things, we don't know how that other person is feeling. We just expect that person may be feeling some type of way, right? It's not that we aren't mindful of their behavior, but it's the fact that we don't know. It's the fact that we just assume that they're cool with it, right? Because they're not voicing their feelings. They're not telling us how they feel. They're just reacting, right? And sometimes we need to understand, you need to tell us how you feel when it comes to a lot of things. So when it comes to certain things and when it comes to boundaries, what they are not, it's important to understand. A boundary isn't something, especially in relationships, a boundary isn't something that is used to control the next person. A boundary is something that is used to help each of us understand where can we go within this relationship. How far can I go? How far can you go? Those are certain things that, needs to be vocalized within the relationship, right? So what I've taken the time out to do, I've taken the time out to list, certain boundaries that I believe should be set forth within a relationship, right? Some of these may be a little funny, but I believe all of these are very, 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 very important, right? One of the things, and mindful, right? Let me take a step back. When do you need to set up these boundaries, right? While we're in that talking stage, while we're in that dating stage, that's the perfect time right there to set up the boundary, right? Allow that other individual know what you can and can't do, what I can and can't allow, right? Because when we're in that talking stage, that's for us to be able to talk and communicate. Hey, I'm not going to allow you to do this. I'm not going to allow you to do that, right? So when we're in that stage, right, we need to be able to voice our concerns, right? We need to be able to voice our concerns early on so that partner can know what they're getting into. So ask that individual a bunch of questions. How are you when you argue? How are you when you do this and that? Because it's important that we need to know what we're getting into, right? So when it comes to setting up certain type of boundaries, one of the boundaries that I believe we should set up is to understand what are some of the things that we can and can't call each other, right? For example, me, myself, I don't care who you are. You could be my mother, father, girlfriend, brother, sister. I don't care who you are. Do not call me boy. Do not call me boy, right? And I've been in plenty of situations to where I've had somebody who I've been, dating or messing around with call me boy, and I've put them in check. And then they call me boy again, and now I just have to get on their ass because that's something I just don't deal with, right? Some ladies don't call, this woman a bitch. Obviously, don't call her a bitch. But there are some women who don't care about it. There's some women who look at it just like a word. What are some of the things that we can and can't call each other, right? We need to start there because everybody doesn't like certain things, right? Another one, which I believe is very, very, very important. How will we argue? How will we fight? Right? So when we're in this talking stage, when we're in this dating stage, we need to ask each other. We need to ask one another, yo, when you get into an argument, how are you? How was your last major argument? What was your last major argument like with your ex or with your brother or sister, whomever? Did you get violent? Did you yell? Did you back off? Did you confront it? Was you very supportive? Did you even speak about it at all? Did you just tuck it in? What is your behavior like when you're arguing, right? Because what happens is we never speak about how to argue within a relationship or how we argue within a relationship. But then when that first argument comes and when that individual is, especially the dude, when that individual's coming at your head, it's like, you're like, whoa. The girl is like, whoa, you tripping, back off, and all these other things, but you never stated it, right? The behavior is new, so the behavior is going to catch you off guard, right? Obviously, when you're asking these questions to someone who has a history of, domestic violence, someone who beats women, or women who beat men, we have to put that out there. I will not accept any type of physical abuse within this relationship, little or small, big or small, big or small. I will not accept any type of, physical abuse within this relationship. So how will you fight? How will you argue within a relationship? That's extremely important. Like, let's get that out of the way ASAP. Let's get that out of the way now and figure it out, right? Talk to each other about that, right? How would each other fight? Because some people, you may be that very vocal person, and when you're in a relationship with someone who is not vocal at all, that right there can make you look a little overpowering, right? You can be a little overbearing, right? When in reality, that just may be your norm, and that may be her norm. But it's very important that you two understand where your norms are at when we're speaking about how we're going to argue within the relationship. We have to understand where we're at and how we both argue within a relationship. And we also have to compromise when it comes to these arguments. If you're typically the individual that's very loud and very aggressive in your speech and things like that, there are certain women and certain dudes who just aren't having it, period. right? Like, I'm not the one that's going to allow anybody to yell at me or talk to me any type of way. So when you're doing this, you have to let that individual know, hey, if we're going to be in this relationship, I will not tolerate this. If we're going to go this far and do some of the things that we've spoken about doing within this relationship, this you yelling at me or you talking to me sideways is not happening at all right? You got to put it out there. No matter how bad it may sound in the beginning, we got to understand the difficult conversations need to happen in the beginning so they won't happen in the end. Because if they happen later on, it's not going to be too good, right? Another boundary that I believe, we should kind of set up, right, is when do you get alone time, right? When do you get alone time? Because the one thing a lot of us, especially me, the one thing a lot of us do not like is someone who smothers us. Someone who's constantly like, oh, where you at? I want to be next to you, blah, 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 and all these other things. No. Let me chill. Let me miss you from time to time, right? Give me some space, right? How often do you want your alone time? If we want to set this up in a relationship, hey, Thursday, it's all you. You want to have your boy days, that's all you. You want to have the ladies night, that's all you. Shout out to the show on Friday. But if you want to have your ladies night, that's all you. Allow that individual their space. But we have to speak about that in the beginning. And we have to understand where that person is at. Because there are some individuals who need that comfort. Like, I need to be around someone all the time. There are other things, below the surface of that makes that person behave that sort of way. But it's important that we try to figure each other out within this dating stage. Because it's not about am I right for you? It's more so about, are you right for me? That's how we have to look at it, right? It's not about if I'm right for you. It's more so about, are you right for me? And if we lead with that approach, are you right for me? We're going to tolerate and we're going to look at things a little differently. We're going to tolerate and we're going to look at things a little differently, right? So when it comes to when do you get alone time, vocalize it, how important it is for you. How often do you want it? How do you deal with women or men who are very smothering, right? Who are on your back and wants to see you all day, all the time, things like that. It's another one. Another boundary that I believe we should set, and this is a very, very important one. How do we behave on social media, right? How do we behave on social media? There are certain people in relationships who don't like it when you liking everybody's pictures. They don't like it when you liking everybody's pictures. They don't like it when you're, commenting on certain women's pages. They don't like it when other people comment on your photos. They don't like the fact that you're on social media all the time. You shouldn't be on social media all the time anyway, but they don't like it that there's certain interactions that you have on social media with others, right? So when it comes to how you should behave on social media, that's a bigger conversation that you should have as well, right? Because social media is a part of all of our lives, and social media can fuck up certain relationships, especially if you're the one to put your information out there, right? There are some people who like their relationships private. We have to respect the fact that we like our relationships private. So that means do not put, I'm with my boyfriend and here's my boyfriend, I'm taking him. Don't put me on your Instagram. I'm not the person to put my girlfriend on my Instagram. Like, it's not just it's not gonna happen. But there are some women who like to be put on Instagram, right? There are some women who feel as if my boyfriend doesn't like me or love me if he doesn't put me on Instagram. That's a deeper conversation that you two need to have, but that's an important conversation that needs to be had during that talking stage, during that stage of dating, right? How do we behave on social media? Like I said, don't put me on your Instagram. I'm not going to put you on mine. Don't expect me to have you all up on my Insta story and all these other things. Don't expect me to write all these cute messages and stuff. Like, that's not happening, right? But also, right, if we have there are a lot of people who are very controlling, a lot of insecure men out there, and a lot of insecure women who are just like, no, you can't be on Instagram because other people comment on your page and other dudes or other girls be in your DMs and blah 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 and all these other things, right? That goes back into understanding, okay, are these boundaries unreasonable? right? Are these boundaries unreasonable? Because if you're telling me to completely cut out my social media, that's not a boundary. That's you trying to control me. That's you trying to tell me where I can and can't go, how I can and can't behave. Like I said, that's not a boundary. That's controlling. And these are red flags that should be noted. And you should, take them down, jot them down early on within a relationship. How does this person want me to behave on social media? Right? Period. If that person is cool with me liking other people pictures, other women pictures, if that person is cool with me commenting on certain things and things of that sort, cool. But if that person is not cool, let's have that conversation, right? Let's have that conversation and sit down and figure out where can we go. Because social media will definitely break up some relationships. It will break up a lot of relationships. But if we don't have that conversation early on in the beginning, it's going to be tough. It's definitely going to be tough. Another thing that I believe, another boundary that we should set up early on within that relationship, early on within that talking stage is, what can we share with one another, right? There's always this meme on Instagram that, when a man, I go get my girl some food and we will have the exact same thing, but my girl wants some of my food. That pisses me off. It's like, yo, yes, baby, I love you and we're here together, whatever, but you got your own food. Eat your damn food like that's yours, right? Don't take mine. Just because we're in a relationship, just because we're partners, doesn't mean we have to share everything. It just means we work together on a lot of things, but that doesn't mean I have to share everything with you, right? Because frankly, how many of y'all will give your girlfriend or your spouse that PIN code to your your PIN code to your debit card? How many of you all will give your girlfriend the PIN code to your ATM card? You won't. It's not a matter of I don't trust that individual. No, it's just a boundary that we're not going to tolerate. It's certain things that I will share with you, and there's certain things that I won't share with you. So let's just be mindful of that and be okay with the fact that you're not going to share certain things with certain individuals. Because it's important that we have our own stuff when it comes to a lot of the situations. So that's another thing. Have that conversation about what are you going to share with someone else, right? Another thing, how often will you communicate with one another, right? That's another conversation that should be had during that dating stage, or during that stage of, trying to figure out what each other's boundaries are. How often will you communicate? Now, that might sound kind of fickle, small, whatever the case may be, but check this out. There's a lot of women and a lot of men out there who want to feel like, yo, you have to text me all throughout the day, and on all of your lunch breaks, I need you to call me, and I need to check in on you all the time, and if you don't check up on me, I'm going to feel like you don't love me, and all of these other things. First things first, that's a red flag. It's a clear red flag, right? If someone is constantly trying to check in on you or try to see where you're at, they're more so trying to keep tabs on you, right? And to someone who's trying to keep tabs on you, that's obviously someone who's trying to control you. Someone who's trying to control you, that's a red flag, right? So let's be mindful if that individual likes to have a conversation all day, throughout the day. Me, when it comes to my girlfriends, when it comes to individuals that, I'm talking to or whatever, I'm not going to speak to you all day, every day. I don't really like texting my girl like that. I would rather talk to you on the phone or talk to you in person. So while I'm going at work, I'm at work. Right? I might call you during my lunch break. It might be here and there, but it's not going to be a everyday thing. It's not going to be like all this other stuff. I don't care for falling asleep, on you on the phone every single night. Some people like that. I need to speak to you until you fall asleep. I don't like that. I don't care for it, right? So these are the things that I would need to vocalize during that dating stage. These are the things that I would need to tell that other person so they can know how far they can go, right? Because if we don't voice these things, they're just going to go. And when they just go, they're just going to start to, walk all over us. They're going to start to manipulate us. They're going to start to do whatever they want to do when it comes to relationship. Right? Another thing within a relationship, what we need to be mindful of, another boundary that we need to set is what I will and what I will not do for you. right? It's important that we understand what I will and what I will not do for you, right? Obviously, we all want that ride or die chick, right? That chick who's going to have our back. That chick who's going to, be there for us unconditionally, right? That unconditional love, that unconditional support, that support and that love without any judgments. We want that. We all want that, and that's something that is needed. However, all of that stuff can be there along with healthy boundaries, right? Because if I'm in a relationship and my girlfriend, granted, I don't smoke weed. I do not smoke weed. If my girlfriend smokes weed, I'm not smoking weed with you. I'm also not going to feed your weed habit. I'm not finna go buy you no weed. I'm not finna go buy you no blunts. I'm not finna put no money on I'm not finna do that. I'm not finna take you to the weed man or the dispensary or whatever. You not finna cop your bag, your grass off of me. Because that's something that I don't do. I don't. What are some of the things that you don't do, right? Because we have to look at some of the things that we don't do in order to understand what we won't allow in the relationship, right? However, even though I will not smoke with you, even though I will not get your weed with you because I do not smoke, anything else, I got your back. With a lot of other things, I got your back, but we have to voice those concerns early on. If we don't, people are just going to walk all over us, right? I spoke about this briefly early on within the show, but another boundary we need to take, another boundary that's very, very important is how often and how will we have sex, period. Our sexual boundaries are very, very important. Sexual boundaries are very, very important. Why are they very, very important? Because there's this little thing called libido. There's this little thing called libido. And libido basically means your sexual drive. Your sexual drive, right? Everybody's sexual drive isn't as high as everyone else. I can't be out here fucking all the time like certain women want you to do, right? Men don't want to fuck all day, every day. There be a lot of guys who be out here preaching this, all this, whoa. But they'll tap out the first round and right? I've had so many conversations with men where it's like, yeah, I do this, I love sex, blah, blah, blah. But then when they come across some women who their sex drive is through the roof, it's just, oh, this bitch crazy. She want to have sex all day, every day, blah, 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 blah. What's your sexual boundary like, right? And understand, just because we're in a relationship, that does not mean you can do any and everything with me. That does not mean we can have sex whenever we want, right? There's a lot of times to where there have been women who have been raped within a relationship, right? That may sound kind of off because we may assume that just because we're in a relationship, we can fuck whenever we want. And no, we can have sex whenever that other individual says yes, right? Because there may be certain individuals who like to have sex once a day, but you want to have sex 3, 4, 5 times a day, right? That person may be tired on the 5th round. At the end of the day, that person may have had a long day at work and just want to go to sleep. Meanwhile, you want to go ahead and fuck her. Don't do that, dog. Don't do that, because what's that doing is that's going to make that other person feel very, very unsafe, right? You're forcing yourself on that woman. And what is that called? Rape, right? We don't want to get in that position because that can cause a lot of negative things, right? Sex is a very important boundary in relationships, but it's also a boundary that gets mixed up because we don't speak about it and we just assume that we can do whatever we want to that individual. Like me, I spoke about this in the last week's episode. I do not tolerate when people touch my ass. I do not tolerate that. So if we're having sex and you decide to touch my ass, sweetheart, I'm sorry, we will stop. I'm not having this. No. Right? There are some men don't play with their booty. Some women who don't like certain things. We have to be mindful of these things. Yes, this conversation may sound a little bit taboo. It may sound a little bit, off. But we have to have these difficult and these awkward conversations in the beginning so it can save us some pain later on. Right? So when it comes to a lot of the things that we're going through in a relationship, talk about it early on. And the last one is something that I kind of, was really kind of hesitant to put down, but it's very, very important to put down, especially within the generation in the way we live things today, in today's world. And that boundary that we should put down is, how will we commit to each other? Why? Because there are some individuals who believe in monogamous relationships. There are some individuals who believe in polyamorous relationships, if that's the right word. Yeah, polyamorous relationships. You know, there are some. And we have to be mindful of that, right? And then also, what is your definition of infidelity? What's your definition of cheating, right? If we had a poll and we asked everybody's what's their definition of cheating, everybody's going to say something different. It could be physical cheating. Are you fucking a girl? Some girls don't care if you just flirt with other people. Some women call it cheating if you're just liking certain women's pictures on Instagram. Certain people are natural flirters, right? So we flirt with everybody. We may not do any harm by it, but we flirt with everybody. Me, I flirt with everybody. I don't mean any harm by it, but it just happens, right? Let me ask my partner within that dating stage or the talking stage, like, yo, I'm someone who flirts. I don't cheat. I don't physically go ahead and fuck the other person, but I'm very, very flirtatious, right? Where do you sit with that? Vice versa. That person needs to know what it is. What's your definition of cheating? Right? What's your definition of cheating? How do you define it? Is it just fucking? Is it just this? Is it just that? What is it? Right? So when it comes to a lot of these boundaries and when you should have these conversations to these boundaries, have them in the beginning, right? So some of the things that I've listed, some of the things that I've said, I think it was 9. Yeah. The 9 things that I've said, have these conversations early on, right? And figure out what type of boundaries should be set up, right? So when it comes to setting up these boundaries and when it comes to vocalizing these boundaries, how do you set them up? Right? The first thing that you have to understand is know where boundaries need to be created, where they need to be created, and why they need to be created, right? If you're in a situation to where, I don't know, they need to be exactly like I just said, where they need to be created. They need to be created here in this talking stage, here in this dating stage, right? This is just the beginning of our relationship. Cool. Since this is the beginning, since this is fresh, since this is new, let me put everything on the table. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. This is what I will tolerate. This is what I'm cool with. Put it out there. That's where those boundaries need to be created. If they're not created in the beginning, trying to create those boundaries later on within a relationship is going to be the hardest thing ever. It's definitely going to be the hardest thing ever to fix it, to maintain it, to create it, right? Because it's like, yo, now I have to do something else. Now I have to do something different. So, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do because now you're just a little bit inconsistent. So after you figure out when and where to create those boundaries, we have to also clarify, our own personal boundaries, right? Clarify the personal boundaries with yourself first. Before you clarify them with the next person, reflect and ask yourself, what are your own personal boundaries, right? We speak a lot about that we don't want to rush into a relationship because we may not be ready. Okay, so when you're not ready, when you're just chilling, playing the field, doing whatever the case may be, ask yourself, what are your personal boundaries? Because a lot of us don't know our personal boundaries, for one, and then a lot of us, we will not know our personal boundaries until they get crossed. Facts. So, figure out what your personal boundaries are, right? But once you figure out what your personal boundaries are, you have to communicate those boundaries, right? That may take a few days or a few weeks for you to be able to figure out what those are. But the moment you figure out what those personal boundaries are, talk that over to that other person. Like I said earlier in the show, I don't like to be called boy. I hate it. Don't call me boy, right? I'm going to let, that other individual know. Don't do that, right? So after you figure out where these boundaries need to be created, which is in the dating stage or the talking stage, whatever it is, it's all mixed up in today's generation. But after you figure out where those boundaries need to be created, own and clarify your own personal boundaries. Figure out what your own personal boundaries are and then communicate those to that relationship. But after you communicate those boundaries to that individual, what you need to do is you need to take responsibility for those boundaries that are being created. Why is it important to take responsibilities for those boundaries? The reason why we should be the reason why we should be responsible for the boundaries that we've created is because there may be unintentional things that can happen because of those boundaries that will be created. Do not say you're the individual who like their space, but then get mad when that individual gives you your space. Don't do that, right? Do not be that individual that throws the ball out there and or throws something up in the air and don't catch nothing. Like, no, if you're going to put something out there, follow through with it. If you're going to say I'm this person or I'm this type of person, if you're going to say I'm the type of person that likes my space, says that, right? But if you also notice that person is giving you a little bit too much space, don't sit there and say, oh, you're giving me too much space, come back. Be a little bit more specific, right? Early on within the show, I said boundaries can't be vague, right? Be more specific. Hey, let's make sure that we see each other at least 4 days out of the week, right? If we live together, let's make sure that we're together during dinner time, or let's set aside some time for us to be with one another, right? Once you put a boundary out there, take responsibility for what you put out there. Take responsibility for that actual need, right? It's very, 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 very important, man. Going into the comments, man. Terrence, it's crazy how people use social media to validate their relationships. No one should be forced to put their partner on social media. Oh yeah, and validation comes from a lack of confidence. Validation comes from insecurity, right? I need to feel validated because I can't validate myself. So we got to put those stuff on social media, Terrence, because I need the world to know, like, hey, I'm in a relationship and blah 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 blah. It's like, nah, it's like those guys or the dudes that, especially in high school, go around and tell everybody, yo, I had sex with whoop whoop and I did this and blah blah blah. We need the validation to feel important. It's crazy. Yeah, it definitely is, but it is what it is, Terrence. And if someone is trying to keep tabs on you, it isn't worth fucking with them. Oh yeah, because for one, that's obviously someone who's very needy, very, very needy. That's obviously there. Also, if they're not giving us our space and want to keep tabs on us, they're just trying to, at the end of the day, control us. That's all it really is. I need to pay attention to where you're at because I need to be mindful of that, right? I need to control all of that. Didier, man, so call me street. Diddy is a fool, man. So going into all of those boundaries, man, some of the things that we definitely need to be mindful and take away from this is obviously communicating. Communicating your thoughts, communicating your feelings. Do not say if a person is doing something negative to you and you don't like it. Do not say, I don't like it. I don't like you doing this because I feel you should do X, Y, Z. It's not about you feel such and such should do X, Y, Z. No. I don't like you drinking because it makes me feel like you don't care about us. I don't like you yelling at me because it makes me feel violated and insecure and vulnerable and all of these negative things. Let that other individual know how their behavior is making you feel. Don't say their behavior is doing this because I feel that you should be doing this. Understand, boundary is not a controlling thing. Boundaries are things to be used to help us understand, where we can and what we can and can't do in certain aspects of life. So when it comes to relationships, voice how you feel. Communicate those things to one another. Do it all the time. Another thing, never assume. Never assume. There's a saying, you assuming makes an ass out of you and an ass out of me. Like, that is facts, right? Don't assume in relationships because we don't know what the other person is thinking. We don't know how the other person is feeling. And because we don't have these conversations, these boundary conversations early on in a relationship, we just assume that we can do any and everything that we want. And because we just assume that we can do any and everything that we want, things will go bad. Things will go bad. That first argument is going to come, and then that first argument is going to tear people up, right? First argument is going to tear people up. I can self-disclose, but in my last relationship, I had one argument in that last relationship. Well, not one argument, but one problem happened in that last relationship. And it folded. The relationship folded. Right? Because I wasn't vocal in the way that I've dealt with problems. Right? I just kept the situation and everything that went on to myself. So when it finally did come out, it came out in the form of bitterness and a lot of negative behaviors and things like that. But if we would have had that conversation early on in the beginning, how do we argue? Or, when certain things go wrong, how would we communicate? It would have never gotten to that, So it's important to understand all of these things, right? Never assume something. Never assume anything. And also follow through on what you say. Do not be inconsistent. Like I said earlier, you have to take responsibility for your needs. Take responsibility for your boundaries. Do not say I'm the individual that likes space. And then when a person gives you your space, don't cry about the space that they're giving you. Don't do that. Be consistent in your boundaries. Follow through and take responsibility for your actions and everything that's going on. But the biggest and most important thing when it comes to all of this stuff, is to know when you got to move on. Right? Because what's going to happen is there's always going to be people that will test you. There's always going to be people that will test you. Right? Especially when it comes to your boundaries. Like I said last week, when it comes to boundaries, when we're setting those boundaries, we have to expect friction. That friction will be there. Real easy. That friction will be there. We have to expect it. We have to be ready for it. So when it does come, it won't surprise us. We're going to know how to deal with it. However, there are going to be certain times where that friction is just entirely too much. Right? If I put a boundary out there and you always cross it, and I'm giving you all of these no's, it's time to go. Right? What a lot of narcissistic people do, they spoon feed you when it comes to their things, right? They pull you in very, very, very slow, right? So when something did go down early on in the relationship and you knew you were supposed to leave, you did it because it wasn't that big. That's something that you should have left at in the beginning. Or that's something you should have said, hey, I'm not going to tolerate. And if this happens again, then I'm going to leave, right? Remember when I said, when boundaries come and that individual crosses that boundary, you have to follow through with some form of consequence. If that consequence is you leaving, then hey, it is what it is. We can be friends, but I can't rock with you, man. I can't rock with you. So, out of everything that I've spoken about today, man, understand that the boundaries that we set in each other will do nothing but save us drama and pain in the long run. Let's do that. Let's talk about these taboo and these difficult things now, right? With some of the things that I've spoken about earlier, especially when it comes to what type of boundaries we should set in the beginning. Talk about these things now in the beginning. Let's talk about how will we have sex, when we will have sex, how much will we have sex. Talk about all of these things in the beginning so when problems come up later on, they won't be an issue. Why? Because we've already spoke about it. All right? So, leading into the question that I have for everyone, one of the biggest things is I want people to understand is, well, not understand, but ask yourself, what boundaries have you allowed yourself to be crossed? What boundaries have you allowed? What boundaries are you currently allowing yourself to be crossed? If that makes sense, right? What type of boundaries are always being crossed and you're just saying okay with it, right? Like I stated earlier, I don't like to be called boy, but if I continue to allow my friend to call me boy, I'm allowing that boundary to be crossed. What boundaries are you allowing to be crossed, right? Once you figure out what that boundary is, speak on it. Say something about it. Do yourself a favor. Stick up for yourself. We have to do that. If we don't stick up for ourselves, who will? Right? So, what boundaries are you allowing to be crossed? Ask yourself that. You know, as always, to everybody that's tuning in, Keith, Terrence, Didier, man, let me get back in this comment before I end the show, man. Vulnerability 2019, good. Didier, not going another year feeling anything. Hey, my man, you're definitely right. So, thank you to my man Didier, Keith, Terrence. Thank you to you all who's listening in. Thank you to those individuals who's been listening to Thank you to those individuals who've been listening to the beginning. Thank you to those individuals who've listened halfway. And thank you to those individuals who haven't listened at all because they haven't caught on yet. You know, thank you. As always, my name is Willis Cooks. This is Chill Will Radio. As always, remember, man, ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay blessed and take care of yourself. Be great, y'all. Peace.